Howdy folks, welcome back to the channel. How can I put this nicely? I was making some magic decks and having a piece of pizza, and a friend of mine asked me a question on Discord. And we got into a very heated argument over two fictional, well, non-fictional I should say, fictitious, there we go, two fictitious enemies from two different movie franchises and combine them together. And i.e. they clash, they go head to head. So how a lot of people do, like the Empire from Star Wars meets the meets the Empire of Mankind from 40k, and it's not even close. So he picked one enemy, and I picked the other. So he hit me first with Skynet, Terminator, Skynet. So he hit me with it. No, well, that's what I hit him with. I hit him back with the Borg. Spoilers. He hit me with Skynet. So we both tactically broke this down. Okay, we tactically broke this down. And I said to him, set the parameters for the timeline. Because as we know, Borg in the future are godly powerful. From the episode in Voyager, where I believe it's called 1, where the Doctor's mobile emitter from the 25th century gets fused with some 7 and 9's nanites, and they create a drone from the 25th century, and he has redundant teleporters, redundant personal shields, and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. And he agreed and said, okay, let's pick the generic timeline of Terminator. So I'm like, okay, so we're going Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Terminator 3. We're not doing the time travel Genesis stuff. And he's like, no. So I'm like, okay, cool. So in this scenario, the Borg, say from first contact, crash lands on Earth, which is what happens in that movie. So this is a scenario where the Borg crash land as Skynet kicks off and starts their shit. So nukes are fallen, humans are fighting, Borg are hiding. They grab a human here, bit of tech there, so they're not exactly super duper advanced. They've got a few advanced drones from the future, of course, but not all of them, okay? So they're growing up in tech tree, very similar to how you've gone from, the T1, what there was the T40, the little bipedal tanks with the 3-barreled Gatling guns in Terminator 3. You go on from them, and then you got the hunter killers and stuff. So it makes sense. Technological wise, it makes sense. Now let's break it down, and I'm going to start with the Borg first. Okay, so bear in mind, this is not the Borg from the 25th century. This is not the Borg from the far future. This is Borg currently, at the time, in the same tech zone as the Terminator. So yes, they do have phased plasma rifles, because that's what the Terminators, kind of thing. So now, let's work on the strengths first. Okay, we're going to do the strengths, and then I'll do the weaknesses. Pros, cons kind of thing. Pros, cons, strengths. Hive mind conscious, adapts to any threat. Which it does, it's the Borg. Now, tech assimilation is their whole thing. Resistance is futile is not just a catchphrase. So, the Borg, all they need to do, in theory, is grab a T-800 or a T-600 or whatever, Terminator endoskeleton they grab or whatever, and infuse it with nanites. Now that T-800 that has a direct connection to Skynet now belongs to the Borg. So then the Borg can then start a cyberspace kind of war, AI versus AI, or hive mind versus AI. Who would win on that point? Don't know. But they learn fast and they adapt extremely fast. You shoot them once, maybe twice, they've adapted if they've got personal shields. Again, this is the current Terminator-ish timeline, so they don't have personal shields. Not all of them. One or two do. But that tech might not be able to be reproduced in that timeline in this scenario. So I'm going to say we'll call that an even. Now, capable of simulating both organic and technological life. So the cybernetic fish and stuff that you saw in Terminator Dark Fate or whatever, they get assimilated. The Terminator bikes, they get assimilated. The HKs, they get assimilated. Slowly but surely, Skynet would be losing massive resources, and the Borg would be collecting them. And again, it's Zerg rushing. They would overwhelm the Terminators. One at a time. Think about it. It's the way I see it is it's the whole aliens versus predator thing. If the aliens are allowed to ingest local populace, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, predators don't stand a chance. There's just too many of them. Even though they've got shoulder cannons and all these blades and da-da-da-da and the cloaks and whatnot, yeah, they can eventually cloak to get out of there and then scarper, but that goes against their code as hunters. So, back to the Terminator Borg thing. Now, granted, they're not agile, technically, but they do use brute strength, and then they can use military genius, which means they assimilate a couple of local resistance fighters as well. They've now got info on the resistance, they've now got info on the Terminator, on Skynet. They figure out where Skynet has certain resource caches, they figure out where the humans are hiding. They go down there, assimilate the humans, and before you know it, there's more Borg than there is Terminators. And so, now let's look at the weaknesses of the Borg. Centralized command structure. If Skynet figures out where the Queen is at, or the person who has been taken over as the Unimatrix mind for the collective, they could take them out with a tactical nuke, things of that nature. Then the Borg become disoriented. Their over-resilience on assimilation can be predictable, which means the Skynet could rig up certain T-800s to just explode, be suicidal T-800s, and take out more Borg drones. Things of that nature. There's things that Skynet could do when it starts to learn, and again, it depends on how fast Skynet does learn. Same as it depends on how fast the collective learns. It's all about who learns fastest. Now, let's take a look at Skynets. Now, I'm talking about Skynet now. Okay. Super advanced AI, global control over networks, satellites, nuclear missiles, etc., etc. Now, it can manufacture armies of machines endlessly, like T-800s, HKs, etc., etc. So they can just keep spurting them out. Remember the whole, you knock out 5 Shermans, and it was a 6th Sherman you didn't see that knocks out the Tiger. You get what I'm saying? Already proven to wipe out most of humanity and resistance to sabotage effects to some extent. Now, there's several times where you see John Connor hack a Terminator or hack a HK or do whatever he needs to do, reprogram them, things of that nature. What else? It doesn't think like Skynet doesn't think like an organism. It is ruthlessly efficient, strategic, and doesn't have emotional motives, which means it understands that if it needs to kill the person. Case in point, so say I'm holding a hostage, yeah. Say I'm holding a hostage. Skynet knows that I'm the priority target, but I'm using this as a shield to protect me, because it knows I don't have a way to protect myself, so it would just shoot the hostage and then it would just shoot me. It would remove that as a shield. Very similar to how in the movie Soldier with Kurt Russell, Amazing movie, I might add. There's a scene where Kurt Russell, they're doing a bit what's called the Battle of the Six Cities, and you see this soldier grab a human hostage and has a gun to their head. The rest of his men put their guns down. He doesn't even flinch. He just lifts it up and goes brap brap brap, kills the hostage, and then brap brap brap, kills the soldier, and then they just move on. He doesn't even think twice. He's cold. He's calculated. It's a beautiful movie. I loved it. I first saw that movie when I was in the service. Trust me, cherry movie. Now, weaknesses of Skynet, mostly confined to Earth. Okay, because it's not going to like have rocket ships or anything. It's we're not doing Terminator Dark Fate. Okay, doesn't really deal with extraterrestrial threats in canon, which it doesn't. So we don't know how Skynet would handle meeting the Borg. And why Skynet isn't AI, it hasn't shown adaptability against alien tech or radically new forms of enemies like the Borg. It just hasn't. They have done crossover comics where RoboCop was in the Terminator universe, and even I think was it Aliens in the Terminator universe? I'm gonna have to Google that. I'm not kidding you. I remember seeing a front cover of has ever crossed over with Terminator. Yes, the Aliens franchise has crossed over with the Terminator franchise in a 4-part miniseries entitled Aliens vs. Predator vs. Terminator, published by Dark Horse Comics. I knew I remember seeing that. And so, let's take into account the fact that they have not there it is, right? There's the front cover of it, yeah. And let's take into the fact that the Skynet in the comic did not know how to handle the xenomorphs or the alien or the predators or the always. It had no way. It had no idea how to handle it. It didn't. So now let's take into account what we know of that comic and apply it to the Borg. Okay, this Borg is in the current timeline, current tech. Okay. So, I'm saying all it would take is maybe 1 or 2 infected humans. Because again, you got to understand, Skynet is rounding up humans for skin and various other organs, and to use them in factories to make bullets and various other things, which is quite ironic because we're using robots to make bullets and stuff now, kind of role reversal. But the point is, this was a very back and forth debate I was having with one of my friends. And they were arguing for the Skynet, I was arguing for the Borg. Now, I am not a die-hard Trekkie. I'm not. I like sci-fi, hence this is why I thought this would be a fun conversation to have. I'm just not a super fan of either. You know, I mean, I like them. You know, I'm just not a super fan of either. Now, I'm vote my bet is on the Borg, because the Borg can assimilate both the human resistance and use their resources, as well as terminate, as well as the Skynet's resources, i.e. T-800s, T-700s, etc., all the HKs, even a T-1000. Could you imagine a Borg assimilated T-1000? That alone is just a scary thought, you know. I'm just throwing it out there, guys, and I thought it would be an interesting conversation, an interesting topic, and yeah. So you tell me what you think, guys, in the comment section down below. Let's have a conversation going. If you're new around here, hit the follow button or the subscribe button, with the big red button down there. I greatly appreciate it. Hit a thumbs up if you like the video. And like I said, guys, share the video with your friends. Let's get. Hopefully, I want to try and make this a series. So in the comment section, give me your takes on like Cylon versus Gundam, or whatever, BattleTech or Transformers, whatever. Give me what you think would be a good versus a good enemy A versus enemy B. Mumra from Thundercats versus Skeletor from He-Man. Things of that nature. And I will do my best to break it down and give my thoughts. Anyway, guys, until then, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.